Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. All right, I want to come on here for just a few minutes and share with you my thoughts on a recent release in the Criterion Collection as I sit here today recording this video just the week after Thanksgiving. We're just a few days away from the end of the November Barnes& and Noble 50% off sale. So before the sale ends, I want to come on here and share with you my thoughts on what I think is going to be my last Criterion Collection release before the sale ends. And this is edition 1199, Spine 1199 in the Criterion Collection. It's a 1995 film from master of French suspense Claude Chabrol, and it is La Ceremonie. This is the 1990 film from Claude Chabrol, starring Sandrine Bonnaire and Isabelle Huppert, and their performances in this film are very impressive, I must say. These two ladies deliver some amazing performances in this suspense drama thriller film that is from 1995 from director Claude Chabrol. So Sandrine Bonnaire delivers a wonderful performance as Sophie. She plays a maid who has been hired by this wealthy family led by Jacqueline Bisset, a family of four who own a French manor. They're a wealthy family in France. They hire Sophie to come on and be their maid. So Jacqueline Bisset is the mother. She plays Catherine. Jean-Pierre Cassel plays Georges Lelevier. And then Virginie Ledoyon plays Melinda. And Valentin Merritt plays Giles, the son. So I want to tell you what I think about this film, what I think about the Blu-ray picture and audio, and what I think about the special features of this edition, so you can decide for yourself, hey, is this a title that you should add to your shopping cart before the sale ends? All right, so La Ceremonie. What do I think about this movie? What do I think about the picture quality, the sound, the supplements? Well, I think this is a really fascinating film. I mean, I saw this film for the first time on this Criterion Blu-ray, and I have to say I was very impressed with this film, with the story of this film, and just going through the supplements and learning about sort of the background of what inspired this movie. This movie was inspired by a novel called A Judgment in Stone by Ruth Rendell. So it was inspired by this novel, also inspired by a true story of the Papin sisters from the 1930s in France who end up, who were maids in France, and they end up doing some pretty awful things during their time as maids. So I'll sort of won't go into any details. I don't want to spoil the movie, but the movie was inspired by those true events and by that novel by Ruth Rendell. So absolutely fascinating story behind this movie. But the movie itself is really quite fascinating. I mean, led by the performances of Sandrine Bonnaire, who plays Sophie. She plays this very mysterious and enigmatic maid. She has a mysterious background. You begin to, pick up some of the breadcrumbs that are left along the way as the story progresses of what her backstory is. And it just sort of lends itself to, sort of a potential dread of what this lady could potentially do. She ends up getting teamed up with Isabelle Huppert's character named Jean, who basically is a postal worker in town, and they make a connection. They become friends, and they end up plotting some pretty crazy things, and things sort of go haywire as this story progresses in ways that you would probably not expect. But let me read the back of the Criterion case. It says Claude Chabrol's 49th feature stands as the crowning achievement of his prolific career, a coolly riveting study of class dynamics, the psychology of crime, and the sordid secrets lurking beneath the veneer of everyday life. A fascinatingly enigmatic César Award-winning Isabelle Huppert is the chaotic yin to Sandrine Bonnaire's tightly coiled yang. They are, respectively, a small town postal worker and a maid to a wealthy family, a pair of outsiders who form a mysterious alliance that gradually, almost imperceptibly, goes haywire. With a master's control of sound, editing, and suspense, Chabrol constructs a tour de force of sustained tension that delivers each brilliant shock with ice-pick precision. So great description by Criterion as always. And I have to say, this is a film that really surprised me. And it's a film that I definitely want to revisit. And it's a film that, quite frankly, inspires me to explore more of Claude Chabrol's work, because this is the very first film of his that I've seen. And I'm very interested in exploring more of his work. If he is the French master of suspense, I definitely want to see more stories from him that sort of go into that territory. He was inspired heavily by Alfred Hitchcock, and he was a member of the directors who were involved in the French New Wave. So he was a contemporary of Jean-Luc Godard and Francois Truffaut and Agnès Varda. He did films in the 1960s as part of the French New Wave. But of course, he had his own special touch on films. And I got a taste of that seeing this film for the first time. So this is the inside of the Criterion case. Of course, you see the disc here, the disc art. You see the little fold out that's included. When you pull the fold out, and take the disc out, you see one of the scenes in the movie here, which is Sandrine Bonnaire and Isabelle Huppert's characters here, Sophie and Jean. I touched my microphone with this case. Sorry for that noise. But yeah, just a fascinating movie all the way around that I highly recommend. If you're into suspense, drama, thriller type movies, I think you'll enjoy this movie. Now, if you're not into foreign films, if you have an aversion to reading subtitles, then you may want to take a pass on this one. But if you're open to that, you're open to foreign cinema, open to exploring new filmmakers, new directors, definitely consider checking this one out, and definitely consider checking it out before the end of the sale. All right, so as far as the video and audio quality of this release from the Criterion Collection of La Ceremonie, I will just simply say that I think that the video quality is fine. It's not the most beautiful or striking Blu-ray I've ever seen, but it's a perfectly competent Blu-ray image. You get pretty decent definition, pretty decent level of detail. I think that the colors come across, could probably come across with a little bit more pop, but overall it's just sort of a perfectly fine looking high definition image, but it's not one that's going to necessarily blow you away. I think that some scenes look a little bit better than others, a little bit more sharper and a little bit more defined than others, but overall I find that this 1080p picture just sort of looks okay. The colors are not incredibly vibrant. I feel like the picture probably could have been a little bit sharper, looking perhaps, but it just sort of looks a little bit on the potentially softer side, if you would. So it's not the most striking Blu-ray image, but it is a perfectly competent high definition image. It's just not the most tack sharp Blu-ray presentation that you will ever see. As far as the audio, I think it sounds perfectly fine. So I think from a total AV standpoint, it is a perfectly fine, competent presentation. I think the selling point of this release really just comes down to the picture, or not the picture quality, but comes down to the actual quality of the film itself and just the quality of this thriller that you're watching, as well as the supplemental package that I think adds some really nice contextual detail behind the making of this film, about Claude Chabrol, about some of the main actors working in this project and other projects like Isabelle Huppert, who he had collaborated with on a number of films. I think that's really the selling point for this particular disc. Is the film is strong, the supplemental package is really interesting, and the video and audio is perfectly serviceable, but not anything that's going to blow your socks off, so to speak. So talking about supplements, I will just say that the supplemental package is pretty nice on this release from the Criterion Collection. You do have a selected scene commentary that features director Claude Chabrol. You have a nice new introduction by filmmaker Bong Joon-ho. So Bong Joon-ho gave us Parasite, Memories of Murder, and Okja. Okja's on 4K, and I could highly recommend all three of those titles. 100%. So if you're thinking about some additional titles for this Barnes& and Noble sale, definitely consider getting Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, as well as Memories of Murder, and Bong Joon-ho's other, Okja, on 4K Ultra HD. One of the most beautiful 4Ks you will ever see. Does a beautiful job of bringing that Japanese countryside to life in that fictional story. Just an amazing release from a visual standpoint. But yeah, so those are some great films from Bong Joon-ho, and of course, on this he does an introduction of this film. He talks about the influences that this director Claude Chabrol had on him, as well as Alfred Hitchcock. So he was also heavily influenced by Alfred Hitchcock as well as Claude Chabrol. So I thought that was very interesting. I never would have made the connection of Bong Joon-ho to Claude Chabrol, the director of this movie. But that's the benefit of exploring new directors and new filmmakers, is realizing, oh, okay, you make certain connecting points of, oh, this director inspired this director respects this director's work, would never have made that connection otherwise. So that's one of the things I really appreciate about going through some of these Criterion supplements. So you have that introduction by Bong Joon-ho, which is excellent. Archival interviews with Chabrol, actors Isabelle Huppert and Sandrine Bonnaire, and co-writer Carolyn Eliashuf. So yeah, those are some great conversations, because Isabelle Huppert talks about her experiences working with the director Claude Chabrol. Claude Chabrol's talking about his experiences working with different actresses and some of the extracurricular activities, I'll say, he got involved in as a result of it. And it's just fascinating seeing some of the behind the scenes, activities that they're showing in some of this footage, and just getting the perspective from Claude Chabrol and Isabelle Huppert of their working relationship together and some of the challenges that they were dealing with, I thought was great. Sandrine Bonnaire also has an interview. She talks about her experiences working with Claude Chabrol and how he really, allowed his actors to own their performances, and that he did not like when, actors just sort of phoned it in, so to speak. He expected his actors to deliver and be on point when they showed up. So thought that was great. And let's see what else. Also, co-writer Caroline Eliashef. She co-wrote this film based upon an adaptation, or adapted this story from the novel that was written by Ruth Rendell. So beautiful hearing from Caroline Eliashef, because she also talks about, crime cinema and kind of how this film fits within that genre. There's an episode of the Criterion Channel series Observations on Film Art about the use of off-screen sound. That's an excellent addition, or an excellent inclusion in this edition, because it talks about, the effective use of off-screen sound, and how Claude Chabrol used that in the making of this particular film. But they use examples from earlier films from like the 1930s and 40s of how off-screen sound was used effectively in those movies, and how that's an effective technique that's applied by directors today, and Claude Chabrol used it really effectively in this film, La Ceremonie. So I thought that was interesting. It's one of those examples of film school in the box, learning about, how films are made. That supplement is a classic example of that from Criterion that I really appreciate. So yeah, you get, your standard other stuff. You get observations on film art about the use of off-screen sound, like I just mentioned. The trailer, new English subtitle translation, plus an essay by Sarah Weinman. So included in here is this little fold-out pamphlet. And you get this essay, Domestic Disturbances by Sarah Weinman, which is very good. Talks about the making of this film, and some of the influences that drove Claude Chabrol, which is great. See some of the wonderful pictures and art. So check that out. Isn't that cool? Nice art. Beautiful stuff. But yeah, overall, folks, I think this is definitely an edition that I can recommend from the Criterion Collection. unless you are completely averse to the idea of watching foreign films, I definitely think that La Ceremonie is one that you should consider adding to your cart, adding to your collection as this sale is winding down. But let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this movie? If you've seen it, what do you think about the films from Claude Chabrol? What are some of your favorites? As well as what are some of your favorite performances from Sandrine Bonnaire and from Isabelle Huppert? Let me know that in the comment section below as well. And as always, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.